Wake up. Ebro in the morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
You shouldn't be saying that on the air.
Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill, the 11th District of New Jersey, and hoping to be the next governor of New Jersey, joining us right now on Ebro, Lauren Rosenberg. Mikie, thanks for joining us.
Yay.
Thank you so much for having me.
First and foremost, how are you feeling a week out from this thing? Do you feel, how tight does it feel, and what do you have to do down this home stretch to beat Sherrill?
It feels really good. We've gotten great vote by mail reports. We've been voting by mail for a couple weeks now. Saturday started early in-person voting, which is relatively new. So we were really pleased that we won the day because I think my opponent was suggesting he was going to have some big blowout, but we certainly didn't see that. So we're just visiting all of the meet and greets, the churches, the rallies, having surrogates in. We've got Obama coming in next weekend. So we are feeling really good.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
I'm a little starstruck.
Yeah. Is that
Great.
pressure? Is that pressure though when talking about how important this is for the Democrats that they're like, hey, Barack is coming out? Does that feel like personal pressure? Like, ooh, man, we really got to win this thing.
Because, I'm going everywhere and I'm speaking and to rallies and stuff, but the thought of giving a speech in front of Obama feels very intimidating, quite frankly. So I'm super excited, but then there is part of me that's thinking, that's going to be really awkward.
How much is on the line here? I think it's important for our audience because everyone can get caught up on sort of, whatever the sexiest topic of the day is, but what is at stake with the kind of candidate that Sherrill is, and just how bad would it be for New Jersey to go red in this election?
I think it would be devastating. I'll tell you, I think normally having a Republican governor in New Jersey has been historically really bad for our economy. So the last Republican we had defunded Planned Parenthood. The rate of STDs went up throughout the state, for example. Rates of mammograms went down. We had the Gateway Tunnel, the ARC version of it, defunded. That's a tunnel, the Hudson River tunnels that about 200,000 people take a day from New Jersey. Often we have summers of hell because of traffic stoppage there in the rail tunnels. So our last Republican governor canceled that. We also ended up in huge pension debt. Our credit rating went down 11 times. So in general, Republicans are very bad economically for the state. However, the combination of a Republican governor with this president who is whole-scale destroying the economy of the United States of America, running what I call a worldwide extortion racket where everyone pays more money for these tariffs and he and his family pocket billions and billions of dollars, to have that married with a Republican governor who has said very clearly he is going to execute the Trump playbook here in New Jersey would just be devastating in every single way. We have so many programs that we're running to try to lift people up, whether it's education, opportunity, jobs programs, healthcare programs to get more people access to affordable healthcare. All of that is at risk. We are seeing a huge defunding of it as Trump somehow raises the deficit by $1 trillion in only 2 months. Somehow, all the programs that lift people up are being canceled. So that would be just a devastating blow to our state.
I think one of the most viral moments in Jack Ciattarelli's campaign, I think when asked about the Black and Latino vote, the importance of his campaign, he was like, next question. So to me, that should tell you so much. But can you talk about a little bit about what your plan is, your agenda for the Latino and Black community? And why they should pay attention to you and vote for you.
Yeah. So we have this desire here in New Jersey to create opportunity for everyone, to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table. And we haven't done a good enough job. We like to say we have the best education system in the nation, but it still feels very much like it's by zip code. And third grade reading scores,
Yeah.
for example, across the state and all zip codes are not as good as they need to be. So phonics-based education, making sure, because, my running mate, Dr. Dale Caldwell, says you learn to read from birth until third grade. And then at third grade and for the rest of your life, you read to learn. So it's a critical inflection point. Kids' online safety is something that I've seen in my own family with my own kids, how devastating it's been. The mental health aspects of it are critical. And I hear from the Black and Latino communities about mental health issues, ensuring opportunity to great education. We also know here in the state that about 70% of white families own their own homes and only 30% of Black families. So expanding that first-time home buyers program so people can start to build generational wealth. We've had a state disparity study showing that Black and Latino communities aren't getting access to state contracting at the rates they should. And so implementing some of the work that New York has done to create better opportunity here in the state, because at every level, I am intent upon driving opportunity and making sure that you can achieve the American dream. You can build something, and then your kids can do better than you are doing. And at every level, we see the Trump administration attacking that. And it often feels to me like we had a saying in the military when you were loading logistically, it was last on, first off. And that's what opportunity feels a little bit like. If you're if you're a group of people or a family that's more recently experienced opportunity, it feels like you're the first person then that gets harmed in an economy that starts to go south, like Trump is doing. And he is definitely working to create an economy where if you have made it, if you are wealthy beyond measure, great. But everybody else is going to be sort of scrambling for scraps at that table. I want to create the opposite in New Jersey.
Now, specifically, obviously, we're all like recoiling in terror as we see what's happening with these ICE raids in different parts of the country. And I can't imagine if New Jersey, for example, were to gain the ire of President Trump and they decided to really go after New Jersey in a hard way. If Jack Ciattarelli is governor, there will be zero resistance there. In fact, it would be the opposite. So if you're elected governor, what can you do to push back against Trump's attack on undocumented immigrants and also just, honestly, people of color and Latinos in general? Because it seems now it's not just undocumented people that are getting stopped, detained, questioned,
Right.
et cetera.
And so many of us who've served around the world could have predicted it. In fact, I said exactly this. This is not just going to impact undocumented people. It might start there, but in countries I've served in around the world, it never ends there. It certainly expands quickly to what, an authoritarian government's the leaders would call enemies of the state. And we've seen that. We've even seen him attacking, just basically telling all his U.S. attorneys, just prosecute people. It doesn't matter what the evidence says. It doesn't matter if you're guilty. And we've seen this from not just the attacks on undocumented people, but certainly then attacks on people who are here legally and people who are citizens. And we hear stories of people being detained, parents not knowing where their kids are as they just have been out walking the dog. I have talked to parents who are telling their children they have to carry, the parents are legal, are citizens here, the children are citizens here, and they're telling their kids you have to carry your passport. That's like nothing I've ever seen in this country. So as governor, I'm going to work to make sure people are safe to go to school, to go to their healthcare appointments, to go report crimes. That if there are federal agents here, they are identifiable. I'm on legislation in Washington so that you have to be identifiable. We had, and I'll carry that out here in New Jersey, we had a police officer tell us that he came upon somebody dressed like he was going to Afghanistan in his town. So imagine you're walking down the street in your neighborhood and there's somebody with a mask on and camouflage carrying weapons. So the police officer goes up to him and says, can you show me some ID? And the guy says, I don't have to do that. And the police officer says, I'm going to have to take you in and arrest you. And the guy goes, well, I'm going to arrest you. And the police officer goes, well, we'll fight it out in jail, I guess, but you're going to show me some identification. And finally, he shows some identification showing he's an ICE agent, but that's unacceptable. to think that you can be some sort of Rambo on the streets of neighborhoods here in New Jersey is unacceptable. So as governor, I'm going to make sure people are identifiable, following the law, following the Constitution. But then we also know that there is the threat of National Guard troops on our streets, and that the president has tried to deploy those, even going so far as to suggest that he wants to use our cities as U.S. military training sites. I'm a veteran. That's appalling to me. It's appalling to people who are serving, who don't, would never want to do that. So we've seen some good results in California, Oregon, Illinois. When that happens, when those governors act very, very quickly to take cases to court, to have the AG prosecute those, to clear out National Guard, because it's against the Insurrection Act, it's against the Posse Comitatus Act. They should not be on the streets of our towns.
A lot was made, Mikie, of you being pressed about money that you made in the stock market while in office, and I think there seems to be some confusion around it. Can you sort of clear up where that stands? I don't think people fully understand even what the conversation is, but also it certainly appears like one of those things, and it's something that Chitterelli has obviously jumped on. I know we're airing his commercials air on our radio station, and we hear that segment. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to sort of clear that up for people who may not understand exactly what that conversation's about.
I know. And I'm frustrated because I don't think I understood the attack when it was launched against me, because it's based on misinformation. I don't trade individual stocks. So nor does my husband. So I put out all of my financial information to the dollar so that people can see, because I very much feel it's my responsibility to show the people I want to serve transparency and accountability. And I'll continue to do that. I've gone above and beyond the ethical requirements of Congress. I'm on legislation so that other members of Congress don't trade in individual stocks either. And I will certainly continue to be transparent and accountable to the people as governor.
Another issue that obviously has been huge, I suppose it won't be as big for you being governor, but it seems like, listen, it's a huge issue in the mayor's race, and that makes no sense either, and that is, of course, Israel and Gaza. But currently, you are in the House, so it is something that affects you day to day. I know that you've been disturbed by what we have seen happening in Gaza and the just death and starvation of children, and this has been a pivotal inflection point for how people view the issue of Israel and Gaza. And, we talk about this quite a bit on our show. As a Jewish American, I've been sort of appalled at how this has happened, and just what a horrible job not only Netanyahu has done with the war specifically, but it's also ingratiating any sort of goodwill around the world. What do you hope to see happen here as we see this ceasefire that's sort of hanging on by a thread? Number one, what do you see unfolding here? And also, do you see a future in which Israel can do anything to sort of make things better, both with how they interact with Gaza and also how they're viewed around the world from this point moving forward because of how bad this whole thing has been?
Yeah, I think they need to surge food and medical aid in like yesterday. I was, I've always been appalled at hostage taking, at the events of October 7th. I think that is something that's widely agreed upon, that,
of course,
how that attack occurred was awful, but that does not in any way excuse using starvation as a tool of war. And I've said that from the start. I've been over to the Rafah border crossing where food aid was not getting in. I told Netanyahu specifically that was unacceptable, and have continued to press. When we've seen certain food trucks there that were going in to give food relief bombed, it's unacceptable to use starvation of civilians as a tool of war. And I continue to feel very strongly that food aid and medical aid needs to be surged into Gaza immediately. And I do think that is something that many Israelis agree with. And I think that would really help Israel's reputation as we work to get back to a place where we can implement the Abraham Accords, when we can have Israel as part of the community of nations supporting the economy there, as well as pushing back against some of the Iranian-backed terrorism. But again, none of that feels as if it can move forward if you are actively starving a population in Gaza. That's unacceptable.
Because it's super important, and this is something that we see every day. I see a new article every day. I see a new headline about how women's reproductive rights are under attack, right? Like, I just saw that the last Planned Parenthood in Manhattan is going to close like next month. So for you, for the state of New Jersey and for the people of New Jersey, what are some of the things that you plan to do if elected governor? Like, how can you secure women's rights and help women have the care that they need?
You know, I will tell you, I think this is something that maybe some people in New Jersey don't have on their radar in a way that I think people should, because my opponent wants to implement an abortion ban. Oddly, he says he's pro-choice, I think, to just kind of put out more misinformation and muddy the waters. But we're looking, I'm looking across the country at states that, put in some of these abortion bans, and we're seeing women. I talk about the story of a woman, Portia, down in Texas, who had 2 children at home, young children. She went in having a miscarriage. Normally, before the fall of Roe, that just would have been what we would have called a DNC, but that's an abortion, as you're having a miscarriage. And yet the doctors were afraid to give her a DNC because of the abortion ban in place, and they were afraid of being convicted. And so they just kept giving her blood transfusions as she's hemorrhaging out in the hospital. They were fully, capable of saving her life, but the doctors didn't do so, and she bled out on the table in the hospital. So that's the threat I think people don't realize here in New Jersey, because they think we're safe. But I'll tell you, this is why I've long been an advocate for a constitutional amendment. So it doesn't matter who's governor, but we know that Jack Ciattarelli has voted to defund Planned Parenthood. He wants to put in place an abortion ban. He's very close to the movement to fully ban abortion here in New Jersey. So he has a pretty clear record, and I think would be a very dangerous person to have in office here.
Yeah, I don't think people really understand how deep it goes. And it's so important for people to understand. Like, I've read so many horrific stories of women just dying, or doctors telling them you have to travel to another state to get the care that you need, which affects people who are poor. Not everybody has the finances, the time, if you have younger children, to do that, to take off a week to get the care that you need. And it's completely unfair, and it just will be catastrophic if it hits New Jersey. It's been horrific in other states, and it just will break my heart to see so many women that will suffer, so many families that will suffer.
I am convinced there's just no way legislators can engage in this area, which is why I'm so just adamantly in favor of saying, look, this is between a woman and her doctor. That is the way you make the best decisions. To somehow try to legislate, pregnancy is complicated.
Yeah.
It's funny because everybody does it to have children. So you think, oh, it's just what people do. It's very complicated. And I'm sure you felt the same way after you had your first kid and heard all the horror stories of other women and what they went through and what could have happened. And how scared you were. I remember just being very scared. I almost didn't want to read anything because I was, already worried enough about my pregnancy. So the thought that somehow legislators, many of whom, have no idea, have no sense of reproductive health whatsoever, could make these choices for women, it just keeps leading to women dying. That's what it leads to.
Yes.
And by the way, speaking of your first child, you're obviously a bona fide crazy person because you went ahead and did this 4 times, which I cannot fathom.
I am crazy.
Laura and I each have 1. Hers is 5. Mine is 9 months. Yeah. I don't know. You have done a lot. You've served in the military. I don't know if anything is harder than having 4. What is the age range of your kids, Mikie?
My oldest is 20 and my youngest is 13.
Okay, so you kept the window at least relatively tight there. It hasn't been like an endless.
Well, I always felt like if I got out of diapers, I could never go back.
So it was always in diapers until it was over.
Or we were out of it. Yeah.
Well, listen, this is a hugely important election. I think that in this area, we have a tendency in the Northeast and in the New York metropolitan area specifically to sort of be like, hey, I know crazy stuff is happening, but we're okay up here. New Jersey going for Chitterelli would really do a lot to be the beginning of the end, potentially, of that sort of the sort of ideals that we believe in this part of the country. So I hope people have been able to take in this conversation and will make the right decision next week or right now if they're early voting. Mikie, Sherrill, running for governor of New Jersey. Thank you for making time for us this morning.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you again, and have a great day. I really appreciate it.
Take